and that is that there were thousands of migrants sleeping on the streets in El Paso.
Which is true, which is Border Patrol needs to be able to do their job, and they're getting in the way of that.
And just Texas, as the state continues to fly and bus thousands of migrants to democratically run cities across the country.
The wire that you're footing the bill to put up to protect your state and the cities.
To return the case to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. What Texas is doing, as has been seen.
Governors across the United States are speaking up in support of Texas Governor Greg Abbott's action being taken along the border.
Emergency decision shakes the nation. All right, buckle up, folks, because we've got some legal drama straight from the top. So picture this. The Supreme Court, the heavyweight champion of justice, just dropped a 5-4 decision that's rocking the entire nation. It's like a legal earthquake, and we're here to spill the tea on what went down. The Supreme Court, the folks with the black robes and all the legal wisdom, recently slammed their gavel down with an emergency decision that's sending shockwaves through the country. And when I say emergency, I mean it's like they hit the panic button and decided something that's got everyone buzzing. Now let's talk numbers. 5-4. That's not a basketball score. That's the breakdown of the Supreme Court vote. 5 justices said, yeah, let's do this, while 4 others threw up their legal hands and said, nah, not on our watch. It's the legal version of a close call, folks. But what does this all mean for us regular folks who don't speak legal jargon fluently? Well, imagine you're deciding where to order pizza with your friends, and it's a tie between pepperoni and veggie lovers. The Supreme Court essentially broke that tie, and now the whole gang has to settle for one topping over the other. Only instead of pizza, we're talking about laws that affect the entire country. The implications of this 5-4 decision are no joke. It's like the legal version of a domino effect. What the Supreme Court says has a ripple effect on all of us. It's like a game of legal Jenga, and one wrong move could shake everything up. Think of it this way. When the Supreme Court makes a decision, it's not just a bunch of judges in robes having a heated debate. It's a big deal because it sets the tone for how laws are interpreted and applied. It's like the referee blowing the whistle in a game, and suddenly everyone has to play by a new set of rules. Texas-Biden border dispute. All right, let's dive into the Lone Star State's showdown with the Biden administration over yonder at the border. This legal tango is like a Wild West standoff, but instead of gunslingers, we've got lawyers throwing legal jabs. Texas and the Biden administration are in the ring. Gloves on, and it's not for a friendly game of poker. Nope, it's a full-blown legal battle, and the stakes are as high as a Texas summer. What's the beef, you ask? Well, it's all about that border. You know, the line in the sand that separates Texas from its southern neighbors. Now, the border dispute isn't some small-town squabble. It's got the attention of the entire nation. Texas is waving its legal lasso, claiming the Biden administration is riding roughshod over its rights. It's like a classic Texas standoff, where both sides are staring each other down, waiting to see who blinks first. But what's the nitty-gritty of this legal wrangling? It's about the Department of Homeland Security and Texas throwing legal haymakers at each other. Texas threw the first punch, suing the federal government, including President Biden's crew, in a Texas federal district court. They're alleging trespass and violations of the Administrative Procedures Act, a fancy way of saying they think the feds are stepping on their cowboy boots without proper legal etiquette. The heart of the matter? A good old-fashioned border wall dispute. Texas had some sea wire up along 29 miles of land in the Eagle Pass area, and the federal government, in the eyes of Texas, decided to play wrecking ball without asking for permission. The lower court even agreed with Texas on some points, but then gave them the legal cold shoulder when they asked for a preliminary injunction. It's like winning the argument but not getting the last slice of pie. Now imagine the legal dust settling in the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, where Texas scored a temporary restraining order and asked for a preliminary injunction. The TRO is like a legal timeout, but it's not a victory dance. It's just keeping things as they are until the court figures out what's what. And here's the kicker. The Supreme Court waltzed into the saloon with a 5-4 order that's basically said, adios, TRO. Now, Governor Abbott's rounding up the Texas National Guard, claiming the right to self-defense under the U.S. Constitution. It's a legal hoedown, and everyone's got their boots on. So there you have it. Texas and Biden locked in a legal two-step over a border dispute that's got more twists and turns than a country road. Grab some popcorn, folks, because this ain't your average legal showdown. It's a Texas-sized drama. Department of Homeland Security versus Texas. All right, folks, let's saddle up and mosey on down to the Lone Star State, where the Department of Homeland Security and Texas are locked in a legal tango that's making headlines. This ain't your run-of-the-mill courtroom drama. It's a Texas-sized showdown with legal jargon thicker than molasses on a hot summer day. The heart of the matter? A border dispute that's got Texas and the feds throwing down legal haymakers. Texas, donning its legal cowboy hat, roped in the DHS, including the Biden administration, accusing them of trespassing and violating the Administrative Procedures Act. It's like Texas saying, "You can't just waltz onto our property without asking nicely." The battleground? The Eagle Pass area, where Texas had some sea wire fencing along 29 miles of land. They argued it was a no trespassing sign, and the feds ignored it. Texas wanted the court to slam the brakes on the feds and grant a preliminary injunction. A legal, "Whoa there, partner."
And that is, there were thousands of migrants sleeping on the streets in El Paso.
And that right of self-defense is established in Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution. And Texas...
Make sure that, they are able to do what they are meant to be doing.
If they take that same money and put it into building the border wall, securing the border, New York...
On one side of this legal rodeo, Texas swung its legal lasso, claiming trespass and violations on the Administrative Procedures Act. It's a classic Texan move. Assert your property rights and make sure folks follow the proper dance steps. The feds likely countered with an emergency intervention card, maybe hinting at a border crisis and asserting their right to control the border. Fast forward to the Supreme Court stepping into the saloon with a 5-4 order. They essentially said, "Hold your horses, Texas. No preliminary injunction for you." Now, it's a legal stampede with Texas calling in the National Guard, claiming self-defense under the U.S. Constitution. Picture the courtroom as the OK Corral, lawyers slinging legal writs instead of six-shooters. Texas wanted the court to say, "You can't just stroll in here," and the feds likely countered with, "We're just doing our job, partner." But this ain't the end of the story. Texas, with its boots firmly planted, is ready for a legal hoedown. That's bound to have more twists and turns than a Texas country road. So grab your legal spurs, folks, because we're in for a wild ride on this Texan legal frontier. Texas's right to self-defense. Well, hold on to your cowboy hats, folks, because Governor Abbott from the great state of Texas just kicked up some dust in response to that Supreme Court decision. It's a Texan-sized reaction that's making waves and raising eyebrows all over. So here's the lowdown. After the Supreme Court threw down a 5-4 order, essentially saying adios, TRO, Governor Abbott didn't twiddle his thumbs. Oh no, he grabbed the bull by the horns and asserted Texas's right to self-defense with all the gusto of a Lone Star cowboy. In a letter that's gone viral quicker than a tumbleweed in a desert breeze, Governor Abbott told the Biden administration, "Y'all broke the compact between the United States and the states." It's like a stern talking to, but in legalese. He argued that the feds, led by President Biden, dropped the ball on enforcing federal laws, especially those about immigration. Now, here's where it gets real interesting. Governor Abbott cited Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3 of the U.S. Constitution. It's like the Texan version of saying, "I'm just doing what the rulebook says." In simpler terms, he's waving the self-defense flag and saying, "According to our supreme law of the land, we've got the right to protect ourselves." And just to drive the point home, Governor Abbott declared that Texas had already thrown down the self-defense card, considering the federal government's failure to fulfill its duties. It's like saying, "Since y'all ain't doing it, we're taking matters into our own hands." Now, what's Governor Abbott doing with all this talk of self-defense? Well, he's called in the cavalry, the Texas National Guard. They're suiting up, spurs and all, to secure the area and, in his words, prevent Border Patrol from cutting the wired. It's a Texan standoff, and Governor Abbott's saying, "We're standing our ground." But the Biden administration ain't taking this sitting down. They gave Texas a 24-hour ultimatum like a legal ticking clock saying, "Let Border Patrol in or else." And rumor has it, they're even considering federalizing the Texas National Guard, a move that's got Texas riled up like a bull at a rodeo. It's a legal square dance, and everyone's got their boots on, ready for a showdown. So whether you're on Team Abbott or Team Biden, this Texan-sized drama is far from over. Y'all better grab some popcorn, because the next act in this legal rodeo is bound to be one for the books. Clash between states. First off, picture this as a three-way dance, and it's not your usual hoedown. Texas, with its hat tipped low and boots firmly on the ground, is squaring off against the Biden administration, led by President Joe Biden himself, and throwing in the Supreme Court as the referee. Now, ain't that a trio? So what's the beef? Well, it's all about that border, the one between Texas and its southern neighbors. Texas, like a gunslinger at high noon, is accusing the Biden administration of leaving them high and dry when it comes to enforcing federal laws, especially those about immigration. It's a classic case of, you're not holding up your end of the deal. Enter the Supreme Court, the folks with the final say in this legal square dance. They stepped into the saloon with a 5-4 order, essentially giving Texas a legal slap on the wrist and saying, "No more temporary restraining order for you." It's a decision that's got everyone from Amarillo to Austin talking. Now let's talk different positions and interests, 'cause this ain't just a friendly game of poker. It's high stakes, and everyone's playing for keeps.
He needs to step up and take swift action, including...
Shows that there are about 4,300 apprehensions per day. Compare that to last month.
To return the case to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. What Texas is doing, as has been seen...
I think Texas is failing to comply with court orders around placement and removal of razor wire.
We have more people coming across our border every single day than what New York gets in a...
Texas. Governor Abbott's waving the self-defense flag, citing the U.S. Constitution like a Texan playbook. He's called in the Texas National Guard, and it's a clear message: we'll protect our turf with or without your blessing. Biden administration. President Biden and his posse are saying, "Hold your horses, Texas. We're giving you 24 hours to let Border Patrol in, or there'll be consequences." There's talk of federalizing the Texas National Guard, and it's like a chess move in this legal chessboard. Supreme Court. With that 5-4 order, the Supreme Court's essentially giving a nod to the feds, saying, we're not stopping them from doing what they gotta do. It's the final act in this legal drama, but everyone knows it's not the end of the story. This clash ain't just about border walls and wire, it's about the fundamental dance between states' rights, federal authority, and the rule of law. It's a tug of war where the stakes are the very fabric of our nation. Sea wire dispute. All right, folks, let's wrangle our minds around the nitty-gritty of the sea wire dispute down in the Eagle Pass area. It's like a Texas-sized soap opera with twists and turns that have everyone on the edge of their boots. So imagine this. Texas had some sea wire fencing set up along 29 miles of land in the Eagle Pass area. Now, this ain't your regular picket fence. It's the kind of fencing that's saying, hey, this is our turf, and you better think twice before crossing. It's the Lone Star State's way of marking its territory, especially when it comes to that hot-button topic, the border. Now enter the federal government, led by the Department of Homeland Security. They weren't too keen on that sea wire. Texas argued it was like putting up a giant no trespassing sign, but the feds saw it as an obstacle in their path. It's like a classic showdown where each side is trying to protect what they believe is rightfully theirs. Here's where it gets real interesting. This sea wire dispute isn't just happening on open plains, it's tangled up in a mess of municipal and private land. Imagine this as a patchwork quilt of territory, with some parts belonging to local communities and others owned by private individuals. So the sea wire isn't just a physical barrier, it's a legal battleground. Texas, in the lower court, argued that the feds were cutting the wire without proper justification, especially when it came to medical emergencies. The court even agreed with Texas on some points, saying, yeah, the feds, you might have overstepped here. But And there's always a but in this legal tale. The lower court denied Texas's request for a preliminary injunction. It's like saying, yeah, we hear you, but we're not hitting the brakes just yet. Now, throw in the fact that the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals stepped into the ring, granting a temporary restraining order. It's like a legal timeout, but not a victory dance. The TRO maintains the status quo while the legal showdown unfolds. And then, like a plot twist in a Hollywood blockbuster, the Supreme Court rode into town with a 5-4 order that said, no more TRO for you, Texas. It's a decision that's got everyone from the Eagle Pass area to the halls of power in Washington scratching their heads. Restraining order and preliminary injunction. All right, let's break down the legal jargon surrounding the lower court's moves, first with the temporary restraining order, and then diving into the request for a preliminary injunction. It's like navigating through the twists and turns of a legal roller coaster. So picture the lower court as the arena where the legal gladiators from Texas and the federal government are duking it out over that sea wire in Eagle Pass. The lower court initially threw a TRO into the mix. Think of it like a timeout in a basketball game. The TRO essentially hits the brakes and said, hold on everyone, let's freeze the frame and maintain the status quo for a bit. Now, why the TRO? Texas, with its sea wire fencing along 29 miles in Eagle Pass, was locking horns with the federal government, arguing that they were cutting the wire without proper justification. The lower court agreed on some points, saying, yeah, you might have a case here. But instead of a full-blown victory dance for Texas, the court opted for the TRO, putting a temporary hold on things while they sorted through the legal spaghetti. But then, like any good legal drama, there's a plot twist. Texas, not content with just the TRO, decided to up the ante and requested a preliminary injunction. Now, what's a preliminary injunction? It's like saying, we're not just hitting the pause button, we want the court to make a more permanent decision. It's a legal move to maintain the status quo, but on a longer-term basis.
To do its job. Also, this is for nothing but for show unless
now to make sure that we are doing even more to secure the border.
As you guys probably saw, DHS sent Texas a letter outlining the access of Border Patrol.
Last point, Dana, is the fact that there's only one reason why this is happening.
To come to the border and see the border for themselves. They didn't come.
Texas essentially said, look, we don't want the feds messing with our sea wire while this case is making its way through the legal rodeo. They wanted the court to put its foot down and say, no cutting, no tampering, and no monkey business with the sea wire until we figure out who's in the right. But here's the kicker. Despite Texas winning some points in the lower court's opinion, they didn't get the green light for the preliminary injunction. The court said, we hear you, Texas, but we're not slamming the gavel down just yet. It's like winning a battle, but not the war. Fast forward to the Supreme Court stepping into the saloon with a 5-4 order, and suddenly that TRO is no more. The legal landscape shifted, and the lower court's decision took a turn in the legal rodeo. From the TRO's timeout to the request for a preliminary injunction, it's a legal tale with more twists and turns than a Texas country road.
Stop illegal immigration. And I expect him to call to me, and that's what Secretary Mayorkas also said.
The constitutional authority to do exactly what we're doing because the authors of the Constitution.
The wire that you're footing the bill to put up to protect your state and the cities, the
agents to have access. They want them to be able to do their job so that they can follow the law.
Maintaining the status quo. All right, let's lasso the details on the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals decision, where they played the referee in this legal showdown over the sea wire in Eagle Pass. It's like the courtroom version of keeping the peace in a Wild West saloon. So after the lower court threw in that TRO timeout, Texas decided to make its case to the Fifth Circuit. Picture it as Texas riding into the appellate court, spurs jingling, saying, we want to keep things as they are while we figure this whole mess out. And what did the Fifth Circuit do? Well, they granted an injunction to maintain the status quo. It's like saying, hold your horses, everyone. We're freezing the frame until we sort through the legal tumbleweed. This injunction is the legal leash that keeps both Texas and the federal government from making any drastic moves until the court makes its final call. Now, what are the specific terms of this injunction? It's like laying down the ground rules for a poker game. The Fifth Circuit essentially said, "All right, Texas, the feds, here's how we're going to do this dance." They ordered that the United States Border Patrol couldn't cut, destroy, or mess with the sea wire that Texas had set up along those 29 miles of land in the Eagle Pass area. It's a legal nod to Texas saying, for now, y'all can't touch that sea wire until we figure out the whole shebang. But remember, it's not a victory dance for Texas. It's more like a temporary truce while the legal wrangling continues. Now, fast forward to the Supreme Court riding into town with that 5-4 order. What happened? Well, they essentially said, Fifth Circuit, your injunction, we're putting a stop to that. It's like the legal script got a major rewrite and suddenly the status quo was up in the air again. Overturning Fifth Circuit's injunction. Hold on to your cowboy hats, folks, because we've got ourselves a legal rodeo. The Supreme Court, with their 5-4 order, just waltzed into town and stirred up the dust by overturning the Fifth Circuit's injunction. It's like a plot twist in a Western, and everyone's wondering who's wearing the white hat. Now let's break down this legal hoedown. The Fifth Circuit had laid down the law with their injunction, telling the U.S. Border Patrol, hands off that sea wire in Eagle Pass, no cutting, no destroying, and no monkey business until we figure this whole thing out. It was a temporary truce, a legal ceasefire in the battle between Texas and the feds. But then the Supreme Court rode in with their 5-4 order and said, sorry partner, but we're overturning that injunction.
But see, here's the deal. He's never called me to talk to me about the immigration issue.
Anything opinion-wise, all the Supreme Court did was send a case back to the Fifth Circuit, and after they sent it back to the Fifth Circuit,
For Border Patrol to do their jobs, they need access. They need access, and right now, they don't have that.
Governors across the United States are speaking up in support of Texas Governor Greg Abbott's action being taken along the border.
Democrats have to face up to the reality of what Texas has to deal with every single day. They adopt the same approach that Texas has.
It's like they threw a legal curveball, shifting the balance of power back in the favor of the feds. Now, why did they do this? That's the million-dollar question. Let's identify the players in this legal poker game. On one side, you had the majority, Justices Thomas, Alito, Gorsuch, and Kavanaugh. They were the ones saying, the Fifth Circuit's injunction? Nah, we're not having it. It's like they were giving the federal government the green light to do as they pleased with that sea wire. On the other side, in the dissenting corner, you had Justices Breyer, Sotomayor, Kagan, and Chief Justice Roberts. They were the ones saying, hold on a minute, the Fifth Circuit had it right with that injunction. It's like they were pushing back against the majority, arguing that Texas deserved a bit more legal breathing room. Now, why did the majority make this move? Well, that's the part where the legal crystal ball gets a bit foggy. They might have seen the injunction as too restrictive, or felt that the lower court and the Fifth Circuit had overstepped their legal bounds. Fallout. Hold on tight, folks, because the aftermath of that Supreme Court decision is like a Texas twister tearing through the legal landscape. Governor Abbott's saddled up, Biden's thrown down an ultimatum, and the Texas National Guard's in the mix. It's a Lone Star showdown that's got everyone talking. So after the Supreme Court dropped that 5-4 order, essentially saying, Fifth Circuit's injunction, we're nixing that, the legal dust settled, but the real storm was just beginning. First up, Governor Abbott wasn't about to let the feds have the last word. He grabbed the reins and issued a letter to the Biden administration that went viral faster than a tumbleweed in a Texas breeze. The governor essentially said, y'all broke the compact between the United States and the states. We're declaring an invasion under Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3, and we're taking matters into our own hands. And what does that mean? Well, Governor Abbott called in the cavalry, the Texas National Guard. It's like a Texan response that says, if you won't protect us, we'll protect ourselves. The National Guard's on the scene, spurs jingling, and they're preventing Border Patrol from cutting that disputed sea wire. It's a bold move, and it's got Texas standing firm on its constitutional right to self-defense. Now, enter President Biden, riding in with his own ultimatum. He gave Texas 24 hours, like a legal ticking clock, saying, let Border Patrol in or there'll be consequences. It's a move that's got the nation watching closely. Will Texas budge or will they stand their ground? Rumors are swirling that Biden might even consider federalizing the Texas National Guard. a chess move that could escalate this Lone Star showdown to a whole new level. Meanwhile, there are sanctions being whispered about, potentially targeting Texas in the realm of oil. It's like a political chess game, and both sides are making strategic moves. And it's not just a Texas affair. Border Patrol unions are throwing their support behind Governor Abbott, and 25 states have penned a letter supporting Texas's actions. On the flip side, there's a chorus calling for punishment, sanctions, and consequences against the Lone Star State. That's all for this video, folks. We'll see you next time.